All right, hello there. So 7th and 8th graders, I wanted to show you the practice process here for Etude number 1 for this week's challenge. I know it looks kind of crazy and a little difficult, so I'm hoping that stepping you through the practice process might be helpful for you guys and figure out how to work on this week. First of all, when you record your video, it doesn't have to be perfect. And you don't need to record all of your practice process like I'm going to do right now. Just record your finished product. It doesn't have to be super fast. Just record you playing through it the best you possibly can, even if it's maybe just part of it. If you feel like the whole thing's too much, work on the first 3 or 4 or 5 lines, whatever that is for you. But showing me that you're practicing something, you're working on something, that's what I'm going for, and that will get you entered into our drawing for the $10 gift card. All right? So, looking here, first of all, we have some kind of learning targets, if you will. It says, I can demonstrate bow mastery, so right hand, by performing 16th notes with a relaxed bow hand and flexible fingers. So we want everything nice and loosey-goosey and being able to be nice and flexible. Perform string crossings using the wrist. So I want to be able to go between 2 different strings just using my wrist and fingers, not using my entire arm. Cello and bass players, you can do it as well, wrist and fingers, all right, not using your entire arm. Perform 16th notes at the frog, middle, and tip of the bow. So you're going to practice this here, here, and here. Obviously, the frog one might feel a little weird. The tip one might feel a little out of control too, but we want to try to have control in all of those different parts of the bow. And number 4 is perform with a ringing tone, especially on octaves. I'll demonstrate to you in a minute what that means when we get there in the practice procedure. All right. Left hand, I can demonstrate left hand fluency by playing in 2. All right. And I've got my tuner clipped on here even so that I can use that to check when I need to. Keeping anchor fingers in place. What that is referring to is especially thinking about when we have half steps. So whether that's your second finger to third finger for violins and violas, or just making sure that your fingers stay on those finger tapes for cello and bass. And then number 3 says tuning half steps in leading tones. All right, so we know what half steps are when there's no possible note between 2, such as F sharp to G or C sharp to D. In this song, we don't have C sharp because we're in the key of G major, so C naturals. So we would have a half step from B to C natural, right? Those are going to show up some. And a leading tone is simply a note that is moving towards the next note, either higher or lower. Sometimes when we approach the end of a song or the end of a phrase, like if I said, ba-ba-da-da-bum, bum, it wants to go to bum, so the note before the last note we'd call a leading tone, all right? Okay, so practice procedure. Here's how we're going to work on this. Number 1, begin by practicing string crossings. Set the middle of the bow on the D string. All right, so D string, middle of the bow. Play 4 16th notes on the open D. Then cross to the G string using only the wrist and play 4 16th notes. And we want to repeat going back and forth. So let's see if I can go between those two using just my my wrist and my fingers. And actually, it's kind of cool doing this on video because I can watch it and see how I'm doing. Okay, so I'm not too worried about the speed here, but practice that, and you can do it actually between your D and your A, and your C and your G, or violins and basses, your A and your E. Just practicing those string crossings, making sure I'm doing it with just my wrist and fingers and as little arm as possible. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2, play the measures containing octaves. Now, an octave, as you hopefully know, is when I have the high version and the low version of the same note. So, for example, open D and high D, or open G and high G. Those seem to be the octaves in this particular piece. It could be from a C to a C, or from any note to another note, but those are the ones we're talking about here. Listen carefully to ensure you are achieving your best ringing tone with notes perfectly in tune. Now, here's what we mean by that ringing tone. If I play, let's go with D on your A string, or for basses, it'd be on your G string. and open D. If I get that perfectly in tune, I should actually get my instrument to ring after I stop playing that note because I have the open string that's also ringing, okay? And I don't know if that's something you guys could hear through this video, but I can definitely hear it right here being this close to the instrument. Okay, if I'm out of tune, it doesn't do it nearly so much. So we want to try to be perfectly in tune. And so by practicing the octaves, I'm going to go maybe between G and G. And between D and D. Okay, and this would also be a good opportunity to use your tuner, which I just noticed my tuner is not doing anything. Maybe it needs to just be turned back on again. Try that. Okay, and when it turned green, I could definitely hear, oh, my instrument started ringing a lot more. So that's what we mean by ringing tone. Okay. Step number 3: mark all half steps and practice each measure with half steps, listening carefully to playing in tune. All right. Now, half steps again is where there's no possible note between those two notes. So in this song, because we're in G major, we're talking from F sharp to G, nothing in between those possible, and from B to C natural, because that's what we have in this song. The way that most people mark those, let me see if I can just show you. I've marked them already in my music, is just simply with kind of a little mark like that from one to the next. So I found that there's not a ton in here, but if you want to go through and mark every time that there's where you go from F sharp to G or G to F sharp, or if you go from B to C or C to B, those would be your half steps to mark in here. All right, now that I've got those marked, then we're supposed to practice those. All right, so the first measure has some G to F sharp back to G. Okay, I'm using my tuner, I'm using my ears, I'm making sure that that's a really good half step, no space between your fingers, violins and violas, cellos and basses, making sure you're really hitting those finger tapes. And then at the end of that measure, we go G to F sharp again, okay? There's another one in measure 3 where we go from C natural to B. I'm going to start at the beginning of the measure and play. Okay, so that E to C natural to B. Making sure that's nice and close. All right? And then you can go through and find the other spots where that happens as well. Again, the focus is really just making sure we're listening carefully, playing in tune. All right? Practice procedure, back to, where are we? Step number 4. So now the instructions say to practice the exercise using approximately 3 inches of bow. These are 16th notes. We don't need very much. So 3 inches might be that much or so. Okay? Keep the bow hand soft and flexible. Let the fingers move the bow. So you're not using your whole wrist. You're not even going from your elbow, just fingers and wrist. Cross the strings with wrist motion. Play the entire etude at the frog, then the middle, then the tip. All right, so this is going to be a little tedious. I'll just do part of it for the sake of the video so it's not terribly long. So if I start at the beginning, I'm going to play at the frog, all right? Make sure you have your wrist up higher than your bow. So you've got a nice, beautiful wrist hand there. Nice and relaxed. Here we go. Well, there's the first 2 lines. That one feels weird to me. It's hard for me to stay that close to the frog because usually I don't want to do 16th notes there. Cellos and basses, you guys tend to be a bit close to the frog in those, so that might not be so weird for you. Here we go at the middle. This is where I want to be, I think. Ready, and... that's the first lines again. In the middle playing that, I realized I was using a lot more than 3 inches of bow. Probably if I was going faster, then I wouldn't need as much bow too. So just kind of a general thought while you're practicing. And then at the tip, this one's going to be a little interesting too. Here we go. Ready? And... lot harder there to do the string crossing sometimes without getting my arm involved at least a little bit there, just because the distance I have to travel is farther there than it is closer here. All right, so after you work your way through the entire thing, then we can play through this whole thing with 16th notes. And then they also have one more variation, is to play the etude as 8th notes using longer staccato bows. So instead of doubling up on each note like it does, just play one of each. So go like this. Make sure you separate them. Okay, that style going all the way through the whole song. All right? So after you've spent some time, this is a process. If you play that, do all those steps through the whole song, you're probably going to have a pretty decent handle on it, okay? Again, as I said, your video does not need to be perfect. If you choose to just do part of the song, that's totally acceptable too. I'll go ahead and play through the whole thing for you just as a demonstration, and good luck in all your practicing. Here we go. 1E and a 2E and a ready, and here we go.